Inhale, one deep breath, and one exhale. I'm going to start with something that feels a little obvious, and that's the title of the movie, His Three Daughters. The father seems to see them that way. The sisters, maybe not so much. And I'm wondering, did that title come early? Because it seems to describe so much of the dynamics of the relationship of these sisters, how they see themselves as unequal, but how their father sees them as equal.
Yeah, that's great. First off, thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Aero. What a beautiful print. Wow, just a beautiful projection. So thank you so much. So the title came, I think, definitely in the midst of the first draft, where I realized that this was, first of all, I love titles, film titles that tell you basically what the story is in just the title. Like that, this is the whole argument. This is the conflict of how, if they saw each other this way, there wouldn't be this story. I thought it was a way to address that it was me that was writing this, that I'm a man doing this. I thought that it was a way that they were seeing each other, that they were seeing each other through how they imagined that their father. It was always not so much through their view of each other, but what they imagined their father views each other. And that was the conflict, but really how he saw each other was this very simple way. Is there three daughters, no way he says at the end.
I hope this is not too weird of a comparison, but when I was watching the film, I was thinking of that warning you get in side view mirrors that say objects might be closer than they appear. And I wonder if the car mirror message kind of has a kind of equivalent in your film, that the circumstances of three siblings in one small apartment with a dying parent means that everything is closer than it appears. They're not just in closer physical proximity to each other, but also closer in emotional proximity to each other.
That's wonderful. Yes. I mean, the thing was, it was very, very important for me to, and for the discussions with Sam Levy, which was how to separate them by framing, especially for so long. Like, they don't share frames for so long. We isolate, like, how the house unspools itself, so you really truly don't know the connection of the kitchen to the room or whatever it is, in the same way that we don't fully understand the connection to them. So that there would be a sense of a great amount of distance, even though the truth is that we're all packed in there and that they're packed in it together, and that they have to respond, they have to walk around each other in the hallway. So that kind of the contrasting, the compression of the place and the expansion of how far away they felt from each other toward the beginning was an important part of the conflict that I think motivated so much of it.
There are two ticking clocks in the film. One is the obvious one, when will our father die? And the second is arguably more important. And it's something that Angel admonishes them, which is that their father's pain will be alleviated. He knows his three daughters will be okay. And I'm curious in writing how that second ticking clock, how early that came into the story, and what it forced your characters to do.
So this is one of those, so I'm somebody that writes, I walk around New York City with this small notepad, writing very, very random ideas, thinking that they're different stories, and then at some point I realized, okay, these very different stories that I'm writing down are actually just different characters all under the same house. And so once I understood that this is one family, the script was written forward, like, so it felt much more like just listening to them. That very first line that Katie says, "You've been good, right?" And it doesn't give any chance to answer it. Just felt like, oh, she's a train, this is driving forward. I understood what the conflicts were. And then I would like to say it was more pre-planned than it was, but just kind of hearing Angel say that, knowing that I've been going through this experience in my own life and understanding like that's part of it, that it has a huge toll on loved ones and when other loved ones aren't getting together, getting along. It all kind of coincided, I guess, in the way, is that it felt like it created itself. The ticking clock of just knowing that at the end of this film, this person is going to pass was something that gave me, okay, I'm gonna break it these 3 days, and it gave me a very, very solid structure, knowing that I have a day with each of these people to get to that place that we know we're gonna get to, and then how we're gonna get to this other place which we don't know how we're gonna get to, if we're gonna get to.
If you were thinking in kind of narrative shortcuts about this film, did you think of it as a story about grief, or did you think about it as a story of reconciliation? Of people reconciling themselves to each other, and the living reconciling themselves to the dying?
For me, this piece has been the opposite of the actual. I thought of it much more as an escape for myself. I really needed this. I needed a sense of control, something that I can control when this experience with just having elderly parents and becoming a caretaker has felt completely out of control and totally, completely something that I just can't get. It didn't feel natural in a way that filmmaking and being on set and being able to control, at least have an idea and aim of control that I could. So this was a way for me to find joy in this moment that's been really, really challenging, and just something that I can look forward to. So that's what it was. The writing was fun for me. It was like I enjoyed them. I find myself in each of them. I find myself so in love with them because of the performances now. The editing, every step of this has been just like a complete escape for me.
In escaping, did you come to some sort of different understanding yourself about sorrow and grief?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel, one of the things that when I began, it felt so confusing, and it felt so unnatural, and it felt like so isolating, and I definitely don't feel that way through the process of this. I got the sense walking around, like one of the things about walking around the city so early is that you get the sense of people's lives. You get some kind of insight, feeling like the struggles and the passion and the joys that are going on. But I feel that even more now when I walk around New York. I see people's faces, and I think that they could be going through something similar that I've gone through or friends have gone through.
Anybody who's gone through it, I think, knows that it's both deeply personal and feels unique, but you know it's incredibly universal.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It definitely feels like how good, and also, for me, the depictions of it on film for the first time somebody passed away when I was younger, it felt so abrasive and felt so opposite of film. Just to not have any slow motion, to have any replay, to be able to go back to it, not to have music, any of that stuff. It felt so kind of misguided. Of just like, wait, I can't go back. I can't have this moment again. So it was, I don't know. It helped me kind of just try to figure out how to address this in a way that I could bring this fantasy of film and what I love, and also try to address that fantasy of it.
Your actors are playing roles, but it also feels like the characters themselves are playing roles, which is, this is what my sisters expect from me, and I'm not gonna fucking disappoint them. I'm gonna give them exactly who they think I am. And I'm wondering about that idea of the characters playing what they imagine their siblings think of them, and then trying to get to something that might be closer to their own truth.
I mean, that was very much a choice of putting Carrie Coon's character against this white wall. I really didn't I wanted us to feel like this was an audition, or this was some kind of rehearsal, or something that we could just imagine that this is anywhere. I mean, it reveals itself to be an apartment, and even though it's, Rachel sitting across from her, it feels completely different than just this white wall. And yeah, it was, for me, writing them as types at first, and feeling like, okay, that's the thing that can unravel, that can give us bit by bit, we can do these fragments, especially because the beginning is really done in these fragments. It's like a moment here, a moment in the kitchen, a moment over here, and they feel very kind of isolated, even though they're happening maybe hours or 15 minutes apart. So it was purposeful to embrace that theatricality. It was a way for me to kind of address what I felt was truthful about doing a film about it, but also gave me and the actors like a real journey to go, okay, when do those seams start showing, and how do we start seeing each other. And shooting in a practical place meant that they were like, when Carrie Coon's character looks out the window and sees Rachel below with a dog, that the fact that we could do that, that was like, that was happening, but it was very unusual. It's super unusual, you know, when you're shooting a film, that somebody's actually where they're supposed to be. And to shoot this in order, which was like a very, we almost 90% of it were able to do, it meant that we could keep building up, and in terms of we were talking about that unraveling, like we could always reference what we had done the scene before, like because it existed. It wasn't something like we'll get to at some point.
I'm curious about those limitations, because you have the limitation of the location, one apartment, so you have the limitation of space. You have a handful of actors, so you have a limitation of the ensemble. You have a limited number of days, I assume, and you have a limited time period in which the story unfolds. How did all of those limitations end up working in your favor, even if they're things that initially might feel terrifying?
It meant that I had incredible amount of control, like an amazing amount of control in terms of that we were always shooting. We weren't moving from set to set. I mean, from location to location. Everything was focused. Actors were always there. We were kind of just constantly in motion. It felt that I knew that, you know, there wasn't going to be anything arbitrary. There wasn't going to be, this wall was going to be moving away. That wasn't a discussion. It was like there was very concrete blocks that I could work within, that I understood. Okay, this line is here. This line is here. Well, can we do this? The idea that the actors responded to the script and nobody wanted to change that gave us an avenue. Okay, well, it's one thing to write the script and to have these ideas of where people sit, but now we're in this place. So how do we make the block? How do we make that move but within these lines? You know, so it really felt the whole thing, and it was like motivated by this part of my life feels completely out of control. This thing, making films, like I've been doing this for enough. I've sent it to these actors. I want to do it with this crew. I want to do it in this exact way. I'm just going to pursue that.
In watching the film, and I think I speak for pretty much everybody here, I hope, we're saying, is the father going to appear? And at what point? And it's, I think, well past an hour in the story that he does. And it almost feels organic to how you were writing. Were you writing as if you didn't know if he's going to appear or not? Or did you always know he would come out?
No, I definitely was not planning on him coming out. And so that surprise was a surprise for me. I definitely thought, like, okay, I know I don't want to go into the room. That was for sure, that I was absolutely not going to, I didn't feel capable of pulling off a death scene in that room, somebody being sick in the way that I felt would be honest. But that him emerging was something that surprised me and very much worried me. And I think it's like the definition of like just setting up a rule that and then breaking this. But that became very exciting to me, which was like, okay, I set up something. I know that there's a chance that I'm going to lose an audience here. I know I'm going to lose this, but this also was something. As I started hearing what the father had to say, I realized that I needed to hear this. I needed this fantasy. I needed this idea that somebody, whether the sisters are hearing this or not, or even if they're not hearing it, that I needed to hear this idea that you could say, I love you, I'm sorry, here's something you don't know about me, that we get a sense of who this person was, and that he would get to share a part to us as an audience that he just wasn't able to in his whole life, like something that personal in the story of Bliss.
That he comes out because it feels like this is really your subconscious talking. This is who I want to be or how I wanted to be at a certain moment. That he's basically giving you a primer on what you say and what you reveal that makes you feel good about the life you led.
Yeah, and I have this, you know, there's this line that the father says, Vincent, where it's like, I heard you say, Christina, this thing about us watching movies, but that was the only time. So I had this idea that another part, like harking back to the title, is that really the father is hearing everything that's going on and feeling everything that's going on and really getting a sense that he's sitting next to us in the theater watching his daughters go through this and just trying to wait to this moment that they start. I hold on as long as you can to this part.
I'm going to quote your own movie back to you. Katie, at the start of the film, says, "I've seen too many movies, probably especially the ones made for children. Even if they get heavy, there's a beauty and clarity to it all." And towards the end of the movie, Christina says this about a movie she watched with her father: "He wanted to explain to me that the death we were watching in the film had no relationship to how it was in life. That books and movies and everything that tried to show death got it wrong." If it were just one character saying it, maybe people wouldn't notice it. When it's two, it feels like not only these characters saying it, it feels like maybe a part of you is saying it as a filmmaker.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing. There's a lot of this that's just my story and just my thinking and just being able to like. The truth is that I definitely hope that each of the sisters are very distinct, but I feel like I found myself approaching this situation as each of them do. So it was a conduit for me to say these things, including what the father says. Was a way for me to express certain things about people that I feel like, oh, they're gone now. And I'm glad I had this moment where I was able to say, oh, you really affected my life.
But you're also saying that pop culture gets it wrong a lot of the time.
I'm saying that I'm also just saying that this film is recognizing its own limitations. It felt like an honest way of doing it. But saying like that, what's amazing about film is also the lie about it, is that there's this fantasy and that there's some truth in embracing, like, in recognizing the magic of cinema, that this is like, we can do this, that an actor can get up, start walking, and we can decide to believe it or not believe it, and at a certain point, it doesn't, whether we're not believing or believing it, whether it's not happening or not, it matters to us, that we take it in, that there's a truth and a reality to it.
You give all of the sisters what I would call these small private moments that speak volumes. It's Carrie Coon's first glass of wine. It's Elizabeth Olsen's first call home. It's Natasha Lyonne's first moment on the bench. Could you talk not only about creating those moments, but also about working with the actors to capture them? And even though they probably have different work styles, how you got them to a place where it felt that everything was working the way you wanted it to?
Well, one of the things, so I wrote with hearing their voices first and foremost. There's a rhythm that I was going after, but I also believe all of them are incredible sounding actors. That they are. When I think of them, I could in previous other work, I can feel them in between. I can see the way they see the other characters or whatever it is. So, just starting with Carrie Coon and that drink of wine, like, yes, I could. That definitely was in the script. But that was Carrie Coon, like, really understanding and relating it to a character, a person, people that she's been around. And when I saw her do that and just take it in and go, oh, find this ground. And I do remember talking to her like, oh, this is this thing that you're waiting for, that you clearly look like in some part of you looking forward to, that when your father goes, you're gonna have this wine and you're gonna hold off on getting there. But suddenly now there's something to celebrate in a very different way. And this is what celebration means, and it's this drive for you, So we had about 3 or 4 days of rehearsal on set, but in terms of working with each of these actors, it was very different. Like for Carrie, it was very much, hey, I believe it's all on the page. If there's an issue, we'll talk through it. I'll let you know, or you let me know if there's something, but I believe I have it. Lizzie, I was able to talk quite a lot about. Like we went out and spent a bunch of days looking at films and talking about Christina. And so that moment was, just going back to what Sam Levy and I talked about, which was isolating their frames and getting a sense of the place and kind of doling it out. That's how starting on these photos, finding her, but it's like it's so much to do with the costume that she's wearing, the pants that Christina's wearing in that shot, the sofa, but it's Lizzie that goes from sitting down, who sits down onto the floor when she hears her daughter. It's just like that's her. That's her completely bringing it. Just me embracing something like that. And then with Rachel, it's something that I've seen in so much of Natasha's work. It's like I know that she's known having a voice,
There's a movie coming out, I think in the next month or so, called Conclave. It's made by Aero who made All Quiet on the Western Front. It's a people thriller, which is an odd combination. But we was talking about working with Stanley Tucci, and he wanted Stanley to do something in a scene. And Stanley said, I already gave it to you. And it was like, I don't know. He goes, and Stanley says, I already gave it to you. So Aero goes and edit, and Stanley gave it to him. He missed it. And I'm wondering, in working with these actors and going in to edit, did you find moments that you didn't realize you had on the day of principal photography?
Yes and no. We shot film, which meant that the monitor, the little monitor that I have, I know it's not gonna represent what I'm looking at, right? When you're shooting video, you're really looking at something that's like directly what you're gonna shoot. So there's a leap, which makes it kind of, you're just looking more or less at framing and having a discussion with your cinematographer, but ultimately I'm tried as much as I could just to be next to Sam and just to be there, because there was no real point to be staring at this little frame because it was happening right in front of me. So yes, there was absolutely surprises in the edit all the time, and the truth is that like I was just given stuff. Like being in the edit was wonderful. It was an amazing experience, but it was the same thing watching them do this. Like whatever preconceptions I had of the characters doing this or that, the moment that we would start shooting it, it would completely erase. And so there was a thing where I felt like I had it and they just said, okay, they just trusted me. There was something during the rehearsal where I just felt like we got on sync, where they just trusted me, and they trusted each other, and there was like the moment that I felt like, hey, it's here. They were like, okay, if you feel that way, there was no questions about that. We just moved on to the next thing. Which again was like the limit of the pressure too, which was like, let's just keep going if you feel that way.
When you were about to start filming, there probably is in your mind scenes or pages that you think are going to be difficult. Did those pages or scenes prove to be the ones that are most difficult, or did something else come along that surprised you in how tricky it was to execute?
The sit down was intimidating. That was just like something very intimidating to figure out how that was all going to work, and just to make sure, because we were going to spend that whole day in there, and we're shooting up on the 6th floor, so we're using, we're not controlling the light, we're like using and we're not shooting throughout the night because we're existing in the building, and we're making sure that we're leaving and trying to be very good neighbors at the right time. So shooting in ways that we could black out the windows and just move slowly around character to character. So that usually dictated who we were starting with, which was like what side we could do. By the time we turn around to Rachel's side, it's actually nighttime. There's quite a lot of like just different points of view. So, and that just connecting that was going to be challenging for me. It's like I'm very dyslexic, so in terms of like how to fully understand how these angles are going to connect with each other, I have to see it. I have to understand it. I have to like be there. Like, okay, this goes there. But also knowing that I'm editing, I have to really have that as pre-planned as possible as well. That was, but I cannot tell you what the thrill of shooting that. I mean, it moved me so much to watch all of them go through that scene. It was really one of the most like gratifying days of my life. The fight scene was scary, but only because I knew that we could only go a couple times, and that they were gonna give it everything was there, and it wasn't something it was gonna start dying. Like if I went more than a couple times. So really setting up the frame and getting close to what's gonna happen, really going like talking through, okay, you're gonna break through the door here, you're gonna, and Lizzie, you're gonna separate, like just getting the blocking down but not touching that, which just kind of going, okay, now we're ready to go, and having to work. And then the father scene was really the biggest thing, which was like, that's the only scene that we shot over 2 days. Everything else we're shooting and moving on to the next. But that one was like just it was a new actor coming in, fully prepared, had an idea, okay, I know you're gonna get up here, I know you're gonna go to the kitchen, but I also wanted it to be something quite freeing about how the camera was gonna move. So them taking a seat in front of him, that's something that just naturally happened as we were just starting to rehearse. Like, oh, okay, they want to sit down for story time as he tells this. So that was, okay, so how are we going to make that work? So that was the most off the grid in a certain way.
Were the actors cast early? Were you writing for them?
I wrote for Lizzie and Carrie and Natasha and Javon. So that was like 15, 20 pages into it when I realized I was really writing specifically for them. And just the idea of putting them together was, I just wanted to go on instinct and think, okay, these are all people that I've either worked with or I have a connection with, that I know at least I can get them the script directly, and that they'll take it seriously. All the other roles came through Nicola Busto, who's the casting director I worked with for the last 15 years, and that, I always find the audition process like really important part of my rehearsal, and just kind of understanding what I'm looking for. I had the three, Carrie, Natasha, and Lizzie, read through the top different angels that I had, just so I could get a sense of, okay, this is how this person affects them. So just being all of us together doing those auditions, I really approached them not only as actors, the leads, but truly as fellow filmmakers, and saying, I want you involved. The edit room is going to be open if you want to come. There's only Lizzie that wanted to step in, but I talked to them quite a lot about how I was piecing together all the financing and production. I just didn't want to. I want them. They know it. There's nothing to hide and pretend that they don't see what's going on.
Why sisters and a dad as opposed to brothers and a mother?
I would say, I can only answer that in retrospect, because it's something like the biggest part of this was I heard Katie say these things first, and I just went with that. I think that I've had experiences where I find that I can be quite a bit more honest if I'm not writing about myself so directly. But the other thing is that like I just didn't think twice about it. I heard Katie, then I saw Christina, and then I saw Rachel, and I just was like, that's that. Yeah, there's really no second guessing in this, so I can't answer that other than it felt correct. And maybe in a part of me, I'm always holding on to actors that I want to work with, so maybe there was some part of me going, someday I'd like to make a film with these actors, and that's configured into that.
My last question is a little weird. I'm not a fan of movie aggregation sites, but I was looking at Rotten Tomatoes. Your movie has a 99% rating, and that means just one critic was not a fan. Would you join me on a road trip to Chicago to talk to Noah Berlatsky at the Chicago Reader and see if we can get him to change his mind or at least watch the movie again?